Welcome to QVS Insights, a series of short podcasts delivered by Forces Children Scotland thanks to funding from the Armed Forces Covenant Fund Trust. Now, Forces Children Scotland has co-produced these podcasts with pupils from Queen Victoria School, which is a boarding school for young people from armed forces and veteran families. So you may have seen our earlier podcast with S5. Now it's the turn of S6 from Queen Victoria School. We're going to talk about getting prepared to take the next step on their route to positive futures. So in episode 2, we're going to talk about positive destinations. And I'm just going to start this podcast off by just basically going around the room and just getting a sense of where everyone's heading after QV. So Reece, do you want to start us off?
Yep, so I'll be studying at Heriot-Watt. I'll be doing my undergraduate degree in economics and finance.
Okay, and Charlie?
I'll go into Dumfries and Galway College for a year. Hopefully go into university 3 years after that.
Okay, and what's the subject?
I'm doing fitness, health and exercise science.
Nice. Theo?
I'm going to Edinburgh College to study sports coaching and rugby.
Nice. Okay, Darren?
I'm going to get an apprenticeship in joinery.
Outstanding. And Ewan?
I'll be studying at Heriot-Watt University doing sports science.
Okay, and Lily Grace?
I'll be studying at the University of the West of Scotland doing TV and radio broadcast production.
Fantastic. And
I'm going to Stirling Uni to study criminology and sociology.
outstanding. And I think I think we touched upon it in terms of episode 1. So I think, Charlie, if I could come to you first here. So how do you feel about the fact that, you've been at QV for, 7 years, you've been around, your peers who understand your lived experience coming from an armed forces or veteran family, and equally too, most of the staff will make a huge effort to really understand that lived experience. How does it feel now to go to college where it might not quite be the same?
Yeah, I think it's different because you got so used to it over the 7 years, like the teachers understanding you, your friends understanding you, and then you just suddenly over one holiday, you're going to be with the people that you've never met before and they don't have the same lifestyle as you. And majority of them won't be forces children, so there'll be a big change of scenery, I think, of people that aren't so much like you.
Yeah, and I think as well, Ewan, do you feel the same way in terms of that, what Charles just said there?
As in terms of
Yeah, in terms of the lived experience. So when you're going to university now, it might not be quite the same where everybody in the class comes from an armed forces or veteran family, or the tutors might not have any understanding of the life you lead. So do you find that'll be quite a challenge?
no, I don't think it'll be that much of a challenge really. I mean, I've been lucky enough as well that I've not moved around as much. I live up north, and I've got a lot of friends at home and stuff like that who don't really share that kind of same background.
Okay.
But I don't really find
It should be a barrier.
it's a challenge. So
No.
I think it would just be normal really.
I don't know. Theo, do you have similar thoughts?
No, I agree with you. And obviously, I live in Edinburgh, so it's obviously a bigger kind of band of people I spend time with. Because some obviously don't go to military school like we do, but they tend to kind of understand in a way sometimes, I think.
No, that makes sense. No, it makes perfect sense. And I think as well, we touched upon in episode 2, 1 about the boarding experience there. Lily Grace, I think you mentioned that about the fact that, you've been through the boarding process, you all have. And that could be a real opportunity to support fellow classmates from state school who may not quite have had that experience. And it's an opportunity to have conversations and form friendships.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. I think it's almost like an advantage for us because, as I said earlier, we already kind of know what to expect. As in meeting new people and, even just getting organised to go to uni, we've got an idea of what we should be bringing with us or what we'll need, and it's just almost like a new version of boarding school for us, but just a little bit more freedom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And do you feel the same way, Lauren?
Yeah, 100%. I think going into accommodation at uni is you're just with a smaller group of people where we've grew up sharing rooms, 4-man rooms, so yeah.
That makes perfect sense. And Darren, I think it's really interesting because it's a real contrast to the other pathways. You're going straight into the world of work. So, talk me through that. What's your thoughts with regards to going in with, the rest of the guys will be going back into young people in their student groups. You're going into world of work with young people and adults. How does that sort of feel for you?
I'm not actually too sure. I think I'm just excited to work, make money.
Yeah, but equally too, you'll hopefully try and find little opportunities there to form sort of strong working relationships, if not social, maybe with the guys. Social is a huge part of uni and college, but for you, it's at work. Got to form these kind of strong relationships to achieve work.
Yeah, I think working on the site as well, because it's quite a big company.
Okay.
I should be working for. So working on site, I think there'll be more people that are other apprentices and stuff as well. I could maybe get along with and then spark more friendships for it.
Yeah, and I think you never know. You might even have, some the guys and girls there that maybe have served, maybe previously. Might have a few veterans working in that sphere. So maybe to find that common link, basically to forge new links as well. It's quite interesting, quite a contrast compared to the rest of the group. I think just finally, Reese, what's your kind of thoughts on that kind of perspective of going into university where not necessarily every classmate or tutor will understand the life you've led?
Yeah, I think that's going to be a difficult aspect. They won't really understand, like, in a way of being like a military child, some of the things that we have to deal with. Because obviously, I know being part of a military family, you tend to move around a lot. I mean, I've moved houses like over eight times, right. So I've always had to make new friends. But I mean, QV like sets you up nicely. They develop all these like skills which are transferable into other aspects of life. So obviously, I think we'll just be fine. No,
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think you're all heading towards very bright, positive future. I think that's very clear to me. And I think moving on to the next question. So I want to talk about sort of boosting personal statements, that you've all had to write to an extent. And I think, having been around sort of QVS for about 2 years now, and I just, I get the huge scope of the activities you do, the quality of the education. You've got some of the responsibilities as house monitors, etc. And all the achievements you have are absolutely epic when you really look at it. So I can imagine it must have been quite a reflective process writing your personal statements where you're thinking, wow, look at all these things I've achieved in these 7 years. Would you say that's the same for you, Theo? Would you say it was quite a reflective process writing that personal statement?
Well, you see, I didn't write a personal statement.
Oh, okay.
The college actually reached out to me and I just kind of like agreed and just signed. And
did you have an interview or anything like that? Or
they just sent me an envelope.
Oh, just send you an envelope. It was quite a straightforward thing. Okay. Yeah. So there's anybody here who did do a personal statement? Yes. Outstanding. Yeah, just pick their own person. Sorry, Theo. Reese, you start off then. So was it quite a reflective statement, sort of process, writing that personal statement?
Yeah, you just got to reflect on the past 7 years of what you've accomplished. And I think the problem that I came across is that actually, obviously, when you're applying and you only have a certain amount of characters that you can write. Yeah. So obviously, one of the problems was that we literally couldn't put like everything that we wanted to, which is a good thing in a way. But it's just obviously the QVs allowed us to achieve many things like be prefects, house monitors, in the pipe band, orderlies, all that stuff.
And Lawrence, the same for you, but quite a reflective process.
Yeah, well, I struggled to begin with like how to start off, but then once you get going, you're just kind of like, oh, I've done this, so I'd also done that, so it's quite easy to just start listing things.
Yeah, because that was the thing, every time I go in, usually like on a Friday, and you're working with different groups, and you're just hearing all the things you've been up to the week, but then at the weekend you're off sporting, you're off to Europe or mountaineering, and Kilimanjaro, whatever. So it's a huge scope of activities you guys get involved in. So it's the same for you, Lily Grace. Was it quite a reflective statement?
I agree, but I think also I find it quite difficult to kind of like, I don't know, like almost like toot your own horn a bit. Like I find it, like, like I don't really know how to word that. As in like, it's quite difficult. Like after everything that we've all done, I think we all find it quite difficult to be like to kind of give ourselves credit for what we've done, because we're kind of like at our school, we're kind of the type of people that are like, oh yeah, we've done all this, but we don't find it really as big a deal as what it is. So I think I found it quite difficult to be like, that actually is quite a cool thing that I've done. Like kind of like give myself credit for a lot of stuff. So. And all our teachers were like, no, you need to show off. Like, you need to, like, this is your time. And we're all quite like, oh, don't really know how to talk about myself type thing. But it was quite good to do it, to be fair.
I think it'd be really interesting, once you get to universities or college or the world of work for down there. And, you start talking about all these experiences. And I think, I don't know, what do you think, Ewan? Do you think it would be quite an interesting sort of comparison where you might be sitting down with a group of guys that just went to state school, for example, in September, and you start talking about some of the things you've done. Do you think it would be quite a contrast potentially?
Yeah, I mean, like especially like when I go home, like I've actually recently only like in the past couple of years like made a lot of friends at home. And like even like when I'm talking to them, like even now, like they'll be asking me about stuff about school life and stuff. And like even when I say like we used to have to hand our phones in at night, they're like, they can't believe it. And like when I say like we're restricted to like where we can go, what time we have to be back, like it's obviously like they don't really understand that aspect, because like at state school they can just like if they want to go anywhere they can. If they want to go at night like out with their mates they can. So yeah, like they found it quite funny that like the rules that we kind of had to do, like obviously growing up and stuff at school. So
No,
it is quite a contrast.
it's interesting. Yeah, it is. It's a really interesting contrast. I think, Theo, you were telling me that, you know, you live in Edinburgh and you've got that good mix of sort of friendship circles.
Yeah.
Do you ever get some questions about sort of life at QV?
I get made fun of
Do you get much fun?
because like obviously they get to keep their phones on and we don't. But obviously in Essex you get that like legally allowed to like keep out and stuff. But I think just made fun of me all the time, really. But no, it was anyway when I looked at it, it was kind of weird. Like 16-year-olds having to hand their phones in when in public school they get to keep on and stuff like that. I just find it like kind of unfair. But it is what it is.
Do you think there's, Charlie, I think that's a really interesting point there, Theo, but Charlie, do you think there's a bit of a mystique about the sub, not necessarily just about the QV, but even the boarding school experience, but then you add the fact you all have parents in the armed forces. Is there quite a mystique or curiosity?
Yeah, I think that especially with sort of, I've got younger cousins, and when you tell them that you sleep over at school and they can't believe it, and then like also if you speak to someone new and it's quite difficult to explain school, because if you say that you go to a military boarding school, they think that you have to like wake up and you've got rifles next to your bed and stuff like that. And you're trying to explain to them that it's like it's not really regimented, but we still have routines and still have traditions.
Yeah,
But it's quite difficult, and they get really curious about it, and then you end up sitting there answering all their questions for ages about what we do and like the difference between. You start to realize how big of a difference there is between QVS and the other state schools.
well, absolutely. And I think that's a really interesting point there, Charlie. And Reese, I can only imagine that's going to be magnified when you go to university, because I think the natural thing will happen, when you're having these initial conversations with people in classrooms or, you're getting matriculated and everything, they're going to ask, where did you come from? What school did you come from? And you go, I come from Queen Victoria School. And like, that sounds a bit different. Tell me a bit about that. It's like, where do you start? It's like your personal statement, eh? Where do you start?
Oh yeah, I know. You just got to start. What I do, I just explain the whole story, like, I'm a military child, my dad's in the army and stuff like that. So it kind of, you just got to explain it in a way that they'll understand. And obviously they get pretty intrigued and into the whole thing. Just start asking questions, just got to answer all of them. And then obviously just be as informative as you can. At the end of the day, they're learning something new as well, so you can't complain.
Absolutely. It's another shared experience. Everyone's going through the same process, isn't it? And you just got to find common links, haven't you?
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that, for the majority, I know, Darren, you're going to the world of work, but I think when you go to university and college, particularly when you go to Freshers' Fair, I can see you're looking forward to that, Theo. So basically, I think what a really interesting point for me is, as a reservist myself, I know for a fact that, the reservists, regiments in Edinburgh, Glasgow, Ayr, they will be at these Freshers' Fairs. So has anyone got thoughts on maybe potentially joining the reserve? Because I know you do cadet forces. Does anyone see themselves doing some reserve work whilst they're studying? Charlie, kick us off. You mentioned about, sleeping, waking up with a rifle. I can guarantee you're going to get that experience in the reserve.
The only reason I thought of the reserves is to play in the pipe bands, because I know a lot of the regiments still have pipe bands, and if you go, then you only need to do pipe band stuff. You don't really need to go in that much. That's sort of the only reason I ever thought about it, just so I can keep drumming and keep practicing, but I don't really want to be a reservist other than that.
You don't want to be crawling about in that? No? Yeah. Don't fancy it?
Not yet.
Fair play. Ewan, is there any sort of thoughts on the reserves? Or?
It was actually similar to Charlie. I was speaking to one of the guys who works at school in the General Hands facility, and he's like a really good piper, and he was saying that, like, to keep up your piping, like, a good thing is to join the reserves. That you don't have to do, like, if you're in the pipe band aspect, you don't have to do as much kind of like reservist stuff, and obviously you can get paid as well through it, so it's like a bit of extra money on the side, and like it keeps like your piping and stuff going. So yeah, but I'm not sure.
Not too sure.
I'm not sure. If I'll go
Maybe just focus on the studies.
Yeah.
Reese, is that even thought come into your head yet, or?
I've thought not joining the reserves, but I know that universities have like the OTC officer training course,
right,
and
right.
I know a lot of the OVs, so the old Victorians who came through QV, they've joined in, and obviously it's kind of like cadets, CCF for grown-ups. They get to go on trips to like abroad, skiing and all that stuff. So I've thought about it, and obviously if there might be other people, I might be joining the army as an officer as well after university. So that's definitely something to think about.
Absolutely, no, absolutely. And so, Lauren, is there any thoughts with that, or have you ever had like a discussion with your parents about maybe looking at the armed forces as a potential career?
Yeah, so I wanted to, after uni, I wanted to join the Navy as an officer and go down and just go straight into it.
Nice.
But my dad mentions the reserves all the time to go and do it. He's like, it's extra money, you can go and do this, it's fun. But I'm not too sure if I'm at uni, but I think definitely after I'll think about joining the services.
Okay, and Lola Grace, any thoughts on that?
I'm not gonna hide you, no.
Fair enough.
My dad's a bit like, he does kind of say to me sometimes, he's like, you could pull it off. He's like, you two look quite smart in your uniform at school. I'm like, nope, it's not a bit of me, I can't lie to you. But no, I think like, don't get me wrong, there's a part of me that like I probably could do it, but it's just not really what I want to go into, really. I think after seeing like my family go through it, and obviously like the rest of our families, I think it would stress me out too much, probably.
No, that's fair enough.
So
I just think obviously we might have civilian audiences listening to this podcast, and I think sometimes there's that what's the word, assumption that there'll be a big push from family members for for you to go into the armed forces, and it's clear to me that it's not. It's a very much an open choice whether or not you join the armed forces. And I think, Darren, obviously you're going to become a joiner. That's correct. Was there any thoughts about the military?
It was a wee bit.
A wee bit.
I used to do cadets and stuff.
Okay.
And I'm in the pipe band and stuff. So there's quite a lot that kind of related to the military. I never really fancied it.
No, that's fair enough.
So absolutely thought I always quite enjoyed like practical work and stuff. So I thought, coming in to do a trade before would be the best bet.
No, sounds good. Sounds good. Just moving on to the next question. So I think it's clear to me, having been around, QVS enough now, that I think the ethos, what the school stands for, the educational standards, you've got the values, the teamwork that's on play here, whether it be rugby, hockey, sports, the community work, the charity work. All of this can only stand you in good stead, for the next steps, building your CV and moving on to these positive futures. So I think it'd be really interesting just to get your thoughts on that, whether it could be a sporting aspect you feel is really going to stand you in good stead, or the military aspects of school. I just want to go around the room and really get a sense of what are you going to take from QV and take that forward to really pursue your next step. So can I start with you, Theo? Sorry, I keep pushing you in the first question. Sorry, Theo.
It'll definitely be the rugby aspect, because like creating that bond with these boys on the field and off the field kind of like creates that like family type of vibe. And I feel like taking that forward into like college and that can really help me, because obviously we started in P7, strangers to each other's, and then 6-7 years later we're like brothers. So I feel like obviously start P7 kind of like it's like me going now, like starting that whole process again in college, and obviously in that hopefully professional area of rugby. So
I think that's wonderful. I mean, like you say, you're looking to sort of build a career in that, whether it be in your professional context, or then you want to help the next generations pursue their rugby goal. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And I think as well, you're always going to have that photo, that team photo. Have you had that team photo yet? Yeah. You can almost look back on that with great pride, I can imagine. Because I think, Charlie, are you in the rugby team as well? So do you share sort of similar thoughts with Theo?
Yeah.
Do you have something different?
I think it's what Theo said as well, because we've had so many highs and lows together, and we train 2 times a week together, so we get a lot of time spent together. It just helps us build like a really strong bond. That's like what Theo said, we're more like brothers now, because when we started in P7, nobody really knew each other because we all came from different places. Some people like vaguely knew each other, but now leaving in S6, we're all like really close knitted. And I think that's got a big thing to do with sport, because like when we won the Shield final, that's probably like one of the highest experiences. But then this year we went out in the quarterfinals, and that was a really low thing. But then it just helps you build a better bond with people.
Yeah, I think as well you've got that kind of added resilience because, you've been used to winning quite a lot, from what I gather. And to go out in the quarterfinals, that must have taken a real bit of sort of personal resilience, equally as a group. But I don't think Theo's quite over yet. But no, I think that's a great point. I mean, Lauren, is there anything particularly from your regard that you think is really going to stand you in good stead? Is it because you mentioned earlier on the visits with the band? Is it something from the band or something different you think is really going to make a huge difference?
Well, I just think like our hockey team had a bit of a rough patch this year where there was a bit of falling outs, but coming out of that, we've it's kind of like the respect aspect.
Okay.
That we've all kind of like learned just on the field. You just drop everything. You just that respect, and everyone's taking it off the field now as well. So like in the girls' boarding house, obviously being in an old girls' house can be a bit rough at times, but like coming with that respect aspect on the field, we've just brought it into the house, and now we get on great.
Yes.
So.
And you clearly take these experiences forward, I think, in terms of forming sort of new relationships at university.
Yeah, I think. I just think getting into groups is probably your best bet at trying to make new friends at uni instead of just like one-on-one and like, hi, I'm Lauren,
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Just that opportune moment will come in just to contribute to something, and I think you'll just find that potentially happening a lot, that you'll just find something just pops up in the head and thinking, okay, I can relate to that and I can contribute to that conversation. And I think, Lily Grace, I was sensing you were coming in from the wings there to contribute. So was there anything else there you had?
No, yeah, I would say hockey's it's really good fun. Like I like how like involved everyone is on the pitch. It's like everybody's got a great part to play. So like we're all really working together as a team, and obviously it keeps you really fit as well. Notice like if we ever do matches against the boys for fun, like they're always like they always say to us, they're like, I didn't realise how much fitness it requires because they're like, constantly just like up and down the pitch. But it's great fun. But like as Lauren said, it can be difficult with the girls because it can be at times it's girls. You know what I mean? Sure. We do bicker and we are quite difficult, and especially being in an all girls boarding house as well. Like we're what ages? It's S2 to S6, so you're literally like we're S6s sharing a house with like 13-year-olds.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it can be quite difficult.
Quite an intense environment in many ways, I can imagine. Because I think compared to civilian peers, where of course there's going to be common links there, but equally they'll jump on the bus or they'll walk home. Whereas for you it's 24/7.
Yeah.
I can imagine that can be quite intense time. But I think your ability to basically form relationships, develop a bit of understanding and empathy, do you think that kind of goes on?
Yeah. No,
as you get older, you start to develop that empathy and understanding?
Yeah, I think it's also like having like little siblings constantly, like, and you actually treat them that way. I think it's the same in the boys' houses as well with the younger boys. It's like you're like if they're all screaming in the house, you're like, be quiet, like shut up, and they're all like, oh right, okay, you know what I mean? But like there is that like sense of like family in the house as well, but don't get me wrong, it can be quite intense at points.
Absolutely. And who wins between the boys and the girls in the matches?
The boys do. I'll admit that. We're actually waiting to have a rematch for the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
But it actually is quite a challenge when we do it. Like genuinely, like the last one we did, like the girls were winning in the beginning and the boys just completely overtook us.
They come out of nowhere.
They do.
Goals.
They do. And they are really good, but it's also because I think they forget that they actually are 10 times the size of us, some of them. Like, I'm sorry, but me going against like someone like Theo can just bosh me out of the way and that's me gone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like there's this boy in our year called Alex and he's like 6 foot. Do you know what I mean? And like going up against like me being 5'3", going up against a 6 foot boy really isn't. It's not a good match.
We're talking about like I guess respect for others. And Theo, you should just let her go.
I know.
It's like right back. But clearly not. Okay, Ewan. What kind of, is there something in the sporting realm or the military realm or the education realm that you're going to really take forward?
Yeah, I mean, like I've been lucky enough, like rugby wise, like especially over this past year to like push like I don't know how to put it, but like especially like talking about like ethos kind of vibe. Our rugby coach, he's like really supportive of like out of school rugby, like pushing where you're playing, as in like regional stuff like the Caledonia team, and then moving on to like Glasgow Warriors stuff and like even Scotland. So because this year, like we've had the chance that we were playing Glasgow Warriors. We played a couple of games with under-18s team with them, and then we managed to push on and even play. We had some Scotland 18 stuff. So we've been in Scotland camps like throughout like the whole of this year, leading up to the Scotland under-18 Six Nations. Obviously, we just missed out on getting selection for that, but you know, like the teachers, especially like the coaching staff, they're super. Like he's been taking us to training sessions like late at night, driving us home. We're getting back at like 10, half 10. Like that's his own time. That's not like he doesn't get that back. He's not like, he doesn't get paid to do that.
No.
Like, it's just out of his own interest, like, and his like genuine care for us that he does that. So like that's like I'm obviously gonna continue rugby and hopefully keep pushing like onto a higher level after school. So
I think that's great because, like you say, I mean, you're constantly pushing yourself, and that can only stand you in great stead because you're pushing yourself to such a high level. But I think it was really interesting that came through there was that sense of community and selfless commitment from the tutors. That's another really valuable life lesson, isn't it? You're learning all the values through sport, but you're also seeing a coach really commit to really supporting you guys.
yeah, I think like because we're such a small school, like in state schools, like there's obviously like you can be 2,000 kids in a state school, so like the relationship between the students and teachers, like it's strictly like a student-teacher relationship that you go in class, get taught, and you leave, and you don't see them until say tomorrow's lesson. But like for us, we're constantly seeing the staff in the house, like on duty for us at night in the houses. So like you know them as like an individual, and like you have that kind of like relationship with them where you know stuff about them. It's not like a strictly student-teacher relationship. Like it's like
it's very unique.
Yeah.
It is a very unique relationship. Great. Reese, is there something specific? As again, you mentioned you talked about rugby in episode 1, but is there anything else particular, or do you want to stick with the rugby theme?
Yeah, just sticking with the rugby theme. It's just something that I think everybody, like, obviously the girls don't play rugby, but I mean, Lauren and LG do, but like not for QV, but everybody can take away lessons from it and just learn from it. And we just grown up over the 7 years to become a real family, just brothers and sisters, obviously, for the girls.
Yeah, well done.
So,
That's it.
So yeah, it's just taking that on and just carrying on doing our thing, making new friends and just making new family.
Yeah, it just seems to me that Netflix have really missed out. They should have made a documentary about this rugby team.
I know.
They might have heard about this rugby team. Sounds epic. Would have really missed out. So if Netflix is listening, please do get in touch. And Darren, just to finish with you, what are you going to take from this? Again, you know, you're a member of the rugby team too. This band of brothers, which is fantastic. Is it rugby that's going to take you, that real thing that's going to stand you in good stead, or is there something else?
Mostly rugby, I think. I work for the band as well.
Yeah,
about band, like we're always kind of doing gigs together and stuff, and we always stick together and we help each other with tunes, or if someone doesn't know something, you'll help them. That I think it's just taking qualities from rugby and band and coming together in a group and stuff.
Yeah, so I think, like I say, just collectively, there's just such a real rich tapestry of values and standards here, and it's incredible, and I can only imagine it's going to stand you in great stead for your positive futures. So I think it's really interesting that in order to get to your positive destinations, you know, you first have to achieve the grades. I think that's very clear. So I think for all of you, you've just come through what's proved quite a pretty intense exam period where in many cases, those grades could really determine where you go next. So I think I'd just like to get 2 questions in here. So I'd like to just get a sense of how everybody felt with regards to how their exams went. Equally too, for maybe younger pupils at Queen Victoria School, it might be even helpful just to maybe provide a couple of helpful tips about how to manage exam stress. So I'll start with Charlie here. So Charlie, how did the exams go for you?
My exams went well because I only had 2 this year, which I feel like, given the amount of like free periods I had, it gave me a lot more time to prepare for them. And yeah, so I felt like they went a lot better this year than they have previously.
Good.
Just because they had more time for it.
Absolutely. And in terms of just managing sort of exam stress, I think everyone handles exam stress differently. What would be your one top tip for maybe the S5s listening to this now?
I'd say like use the facilities and use the time to your advantage. But we've got rugby pitches, we've got the Astro. So in your spare time, go down and like with your friends, go out, kick about, play about. And if you're feeling stressed, just get a couple of people to go outside, and even half an hour can make the difference for you to calm down and de-stress, just to get out in fresh air and like have a game of rugby or something.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Charlie. Lauren, if I can come to you next, how did the exams go for you?
Oh, I'm hoping they went well, otherwise
Fingers crossed.
clearing might come into the mix, but no, I'm hoping they went well, but yeah. Don't know. RE was a struggle, can't lie, but RE was rough.
But in terms, so did you find the exams quite stressful in many ways, or did you just take it in your stride?
But I think that's the problem. I didn't stress.
Okay.
Like I just was very chilled out about it. And I'd say like to everyone, like, be chilled. There's no point getting yourself worked up over something that's you don't know what the end's going to be. But I think maybe having that little bit about you that's like, oh no, I need to have a little bit of stress to make me want to work harder for them.
So it's kind of maybe a bit what Charlie was saying there. So, push yourself to really sort of maximise your revision, but also find time just to forget about it.
Yeah.
It's not happening in your head.
Yeah.
Go back to it. No, that's all good stuff. Darren, how did the exams go for you?
I only had one this year.
Okay.
And music.
Pretty solid.
Yeah, I
Solid
think
performance.
quite well. Yeah.
But you're a budding DJ, I understand.
That's
Second album imminent.
yeah. I don't stress too much, so I never really stress a lot about anything really.
Does it help in terms of sort of the particularly music exams? When it's it's necessarily it's cognitive. It's also very much
Very
playing.
practical.
Yeah.
That I think that helped a lot because
Very expressive.
Yeah.
And you just find that was fine. So in terms of fellow music pupils, what would be the one tip? Because for example, say someone really overthinks performance, what would you say to them?
I think just when you go in, just play it like you're trying to get the perfect practice.
Yep.
Don't worry about the examiner watching you, because that's what really gets your mind going.
It's sometimes a bit awkward, a bit like this in some ways, where you got the mics and boom, something, you're being recorded. It's totally different, isn't it?
Yeah.
Having gone through that process myself, I can relate.
Yeah.
Whereas, you've been practicing in that room for hours and hours, there's no matter, then all of a sudden there's a panel of people listening to you and they're recording it, and yeah, it's a lot of pressure there.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure,
But you took it in your stride, did you?
Yeah.
Like a pro. Absolutely. Ewan, talk me through it. So how did the exams go for you?
No, they went pretty well. Yeah, I only had 3 this year, so
Okay.
like it was a mix of like stress, like kind of like difficulty wise, like some were easy, some were surprisingly difficult. But that probably wasn't helped by the revision, well, lack of.
Okay, lack of no, I appreciate that.
But yeah, no, they went all right.
I think, like I say too, it's totally fine to reflect and say maybe I could have revised more. So I guess that's maybe your top tip for the S5s, maybe just to maybe put a study schedule, because you guys are doing so many things. You've been talking about it in this episode.
Yeah.
Maybe it might be good just to put a wee study timetable. Would that may have worked maybe?
Yeah, I think last year, like I had more exams, like my exams were really important, like the subjects I was doing. So like I revised quite hard last year, but I think, and I told myself at the end of last year that I was going to revise the same, but I got to it and I just didn't. So I think like there's no point, like if you don't have the motivation to revise, I would say like don't sit and stress about it. But like I would say like the month before your exams, like you should probably like
Get the head.
get revising it. But can I say
I could have done it better enough. I you didn't sit that. Yeah, strong advice.
yeah, but like there's no point stressing. Like I perform better like under last minute. Like that's
Okay.
kind of how I roll.
Yeah.
But like last minute, just what I mean.
God, it's like an episode of Bad Boys here. It's how you go. That is fantastic. And Theo, you'll be glad to know that I've not picked on you to be the first respondee this time. So how did the exams go for you?
I think it went pretty well because I'm the same as Charlie. I only had 2.
Okay.
And I think I had more time to revise. Well, I should have revised, but but no, yeah, it went really good.
And Jason, so do you think it's quite a similar thing to what Ewan was talking about, that maybe a month before the exams, maybe it might have been good to just have map down your kind of when you were going to study and when you were going to do other things. Would that work maybe?
Yeah,
potentially?
definitely having a timetable to like revise and that, because like some people obviously have like do 5 hours straight, like 5 hours to revise. I tend to like maybe like hour or two, then have a break and then go again.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, everyone's different. I mean, you know, when I was studying, it was the same thing. Some people, like Ewan was saying, you know, last minute, that's when the motivation, that's when the head clicks in, the concentration clicks in. Whereas for others, I know will revise for like 6 weeks. You know, there's just a huge continuum, isn't there? So there's no wrong or right answer, I think, here. Lily Grace, talk me through it. Exam time.
I would say my exams actually went all right this year. I had 3 exams this year. But yeah, I'm the type of person that does stress a lot about this stuff. I'm quite like, it's not about disappointing my parents. Like, my dad's quite supportive. He's honestly not that fussy. He just wants me to try my best. But
Sure.
I think I'm more worried about like letting myself down or letting my teachers down. So yeah, but I'm not very good when it comes to like revising either. So I'm a bit of like a worrier, but doesn't actually do anything about it.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one.
Yeah, so but like Ewan said, I'm like much rather prefer like cram revise. I find like revising under pressure like a lot like easier in a way. And I think one thing we all struggle with is actually sitting down and revising.
Yeah.
But one thing that is good about like our school is how we've got like a like time that we're supposed to be doing like our homework. So we have like a prep time from 7 till 8:30 for the seniors. So
Is that throughout the year?
yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll just like kind of have to sit in our rooms and do our homework or revise or whatever. And I think it's good having that time because when we're at home and like in the holidays, like I know for a fact like not many of us revised in the Easter holidays, which was obviously just before exams. So I think we find it quite difficult when we're not at school to kind of sit down and revise and get some done. Even just like outside of that prep time, I find it really difficult to like revise outside of that time. But no, I managed to pull off.
No,
It
absolutely.
was good.
I think it's just really interesting because, like you say, I mean, I think, you know, when you look at the, you know, your peers in maybe state school, it's the opposite, isn't it? They're not necessarily going to go home every night and have an hour and a half or whatever.
I know that's one thing I just can't do. Like some of my friends outside of school, they're like, "Oh, I need to go back and like revise for 2 hours tonight," and they'll do it 100%.
Yeah.
But I'm like quite a procrastinator.
Okay.
I like find everything I can do before I revise. So I do need to stop that. But no, I do prefer just revising like the last minute, probably like the last 2 to 3 weeks before that.
No, it's totally fine. Absolutely no. And finally, Grace, how did the exams go for you?
Yeah, I was revising hard all year.
What?
I was only joking. I only had I'd done 3 crash hires. I had all those exams and it went all right. I mean, I could have done like more revision going into it, but I think off the back of last year S5, when I was doing 5 hires, obviously they went pretty all right. I mean, got the grades that I needed and stuff, so kind of came into Essex maybe a little bit too relaxed.
Okay. Yeah.
Which may have been a problem, but I mean, got there in the end. And at the end of the day, like for me personally, everybody has to go through it. It's just something that you have to do. Just like stressing over it wouldn't like change the outcome. So just put your head down.
So I think you've kind of combined question 1 and 2 there, haven't you? So you've kind of just talked about that. I think that was a really interesting point that, and it's the same for, you know, civilian peers in the state school, that if you've got the grades in S5, it's very hard, isn't it, to have that same mindset in S6 because you know you've got the grades.
Yeah.
But equally too, maybe it's just to be mindful that maybe, you know, 5-10 years down the line, it might be just being advantageous to have that extra B or A rather than C or something A. It's just that kind of learning curve that you've just said. Everyone's going through that process and they're all learning in the same way. So, you know, thanks for sharing that, Reese. And finally, right, the question I want to hear some fantastic responses on is, we're talking about everyone's progressing here to either college, university, world of work. I'd just really like to know, where do you see yourself in 10 years' time? Don't worry, Thea, I'm not going to ask you first. It's all good to see you. Lily Grace, talk me through. You were pondering on this off camera, weren't you? You'd be 27 at that point.
Yeah, I figured that out.
Mass revision.
Yeah. I'm not too sure. I hope that I have some sort of stable job, you know, a good paying job. I hope that like settled in like a house or something, some sort of flat. Who knows? could have children by then. I don't know.
Yeah.
It would be nice if I did, but I'm not really in a rush for any of that stuff, to be honest with you. But I'm just happy as long as I'm got a good job or that I've moved out by then. I think I'll be happy.
Is there a specific sort of sector do you see yourself going into?
Well, when I go to uni, I'm doing quite a media-based course. As of right now, I would like to do radio.
Oh, okay.
But my course offers like a mix of both TV and radio. So I'm not sure. I might do the course and like try out the TV stuff. I might prefer that. I'm not sure, but I'm really into my music. I really like.
Nice.
So I do singing as well. So I really enjoy like my music aspect of my life. So I thought I could put that to good use as well. So
Brilliant.
I'm not too sure, but we'll see where it
Lots
goes.
of options,
Yeah.
absolutely. And Ewan, talk me through it. I'm thinking Glasgow Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, like all goes well. 10 years, hopefully, I'm just like obviously playing rugby at like a significantly higher level. Like Glasgow Warriors, like that's pushing like senior team. So that's the plan. Yeah,
Good.
that's the plan.
Good. Reese, talk me through it. 10 years' time.
So 10 years time, there's two outcomes really. So
Okay.
so obviously I said that I'm interested in joining the army as an officer. So after I get my degree, maybe join my dad's regiment, the Gurkhas, and be an officer there. But and the second outcome would be so over the April holidays, I applied to a role at Morgan Stanley, and I ended up landing an internship week at Morgan Stanley at the their business in Glasgow. So hopefully, if that goes well, land an internship during the summer and maybe work there, like in investment banking or wealth management.
Wow. Yeah. Sounds very promising careers both ways, isn't it? Either an officer in the army or in wealth management. I mean, great pathways.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Lauren,
Well, I mean, everyone has their dream, but I'm not quite sure about
what's your dream, Lauren?
Everyone wants to be like everyone wants to play for Scotland in their sport, don't they? So like it'd be nice if I could progress in rugby to the Scotland girls stuff, which you know, you never know if it's gonna happen or not, but hopefully I'm not in the country. I'm like away somewhere else. I want to live in New Zealand, and that's where I plan on going on my year abroad at uni. So hopefully I'd go over there, find something there that I like and can stay there and don't need to come back.
Can sort of build a career playing rugby in New Zealand.
Well, I want my own dairy farm. So,
Okay. No.
yeah, it's so random. I've always wanted my own dairy farm.
Of all the things I thought you were going to say, Lauren.
Yeah, I want to live on a farm. Like I want my own farm with like its own little cafe, and you know, I can have bees and make honey. Do you know, like my own stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sure.
That's cool. And Darren, can you top that?
I'll probably just be a joiner at that point, looking to start a business.
Yeah.
Joinery business and make loads of money.
So you see that kind of that apprenticeship as the real stepping stone to working for yourself, you were saying.
Yes.
So you really quite fancy sort of being a sole trader and building up your own business.
Yeah.
Taking over the world.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic stuff.
And some money.
Charlie.
I'd like to hope that I've got a good job in something I enjoy, like sports, or working for like a high level club, helping them out. And then I don't know if I'll have kids or a family, but that's still to come. So I'm not too fussed about that just yet. But I want to have like a big house in the countryside. It's like, you know, like have a river nearby so I can just go swimming when it's hot.
Do you want to have some? Do you want to have some bees in it, Lauren?
After I get stung.
She can deliver some honey.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Like I said, you got a partnership here, corporate partnership. Fantastic. And finally, Leo, where are we in 10 years' time?
I'm like Riz. I think I have two outcomes. Either like professional rugby, obviously, like Glasgow or something, or either working at Tesco's. So the option really. That's about it.
But like graduate scheme?
What's that?
Like the graduate scheme in Tesco? Like you want to become like a senior manager in Tesco, or
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's just
Some dancy shopping.
oh, he's good.
the register.
Yeah, you know that's a worthwhile career path. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, great. Well, I think we've had some really interesting answers there. I think yours was the best, Lauren, by far.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I say, I wish you all the best of luck in your positive futures. I mean, it's very clear to me that I think the experiences you've gained at QVS, the friendships you've gained, the life lessons you've already learned can only stand you in good stead. So I really wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.